Well, I must say to both of you that if you set out to make a movie that was disturbing and a movie that would shake people up, you really batted 1,000 with me, because it's hard for me to say I enjoyed the movie because I was really so upset by it.
Good.
I knew that would please you. I knew that would please you, because you accomplished, I'm sure, one of your aims. But now we're getting all this aftermath and all these charges from various and sundry people saying it's a lie, and saying that so many things about it that would infer that maybe you didn't do your homework very well.
I must say that the people who made the charges did not do their homework very well. Our work is documented. It's on tape. It's in volumes and volumes of transcripts. It's in interviews that are corroborated by many witnesses. And a couple of guys shot from the hip. They wrote what they wished to be and not what was. It's a very true film, and the story is true.
Well, what's interesting about that is that here you've got a movie in which the police take a pretty bad beating, even though that is not intended, even though they're treated very compassionately. And the element that you're talking about has come largely from the prosecutors, who for the first time are not treated as men in the white hats.
Just let me interrupt 1 minute. We screened this film for 600 members of the Criminal Justice Department of the ABA, American Bar Association. A standing ovation. We screened it for almost the entire Justice Department in Washington.
And the Drug Enforcement Agency.
The Drug Enforcement Agency, from, I mean, top to bottom, in that FBI, Secret Service, the whole shebang. We were asked to loan it to the Drug Enforcement Agency as a training film.
To give it, Jane.
To give it. Well, sure. How
no, they've got their own print now.
Yeah.
Their own
in any event, the squawks that you have heard, I am delighted to be able to say that I think largely are vanity squawks.
People have an image of themselves. As Jay said in answering one of them, in which there was a specific prosecutor's complaint, she said, "I'm sorry we couldn't get Robert Redford for your part." but in a way, that's really what it amounts to, in our opinion.
Yes. In the movie, you do not try to tell us why Bob Lucy, or Danny Cello, why he did what he did, why he got involved in the bribes and taking money and so forth and so on. And now that you're hearing all of this from people saying why and why didn't you say why, if you were doing it over, would you try to deal with the why of it a little bit, Mr. Lumet?
Absolutely not. We had every chance in the world to do that.
No more than we did in the first instance. It's there. It's just that people are used to simple solutions. They're used to a psychological revelation. My daddy came in and said boo to me when I was 2, and that's the way I am.
And absolutes. Right, wrong, good, bad.
In my opinion, you trash a person's life, you cheapen their experience when you try to bring it down to one thing. What Bob Lucy went through in that experience, and what Danny Cello goes through in this movie, is too important, is too complex, is too, pardon the use of the word, profound, to ever be pinned onto one thing. You have to watch this movie. You have to pay attention. You have to listen carefully, look carefully. There are hints all the way through. There are...
Also, it's been 10 years, I think Bob Lucy is only now beginning to know actually why he did what he did.
And may never be able to resolve it. I certainly don't know whether I'll be able to resolve it. And finally, I don't think it's important. Finally, after all the motives are over with, after all of everybody's impulses are over with, only one thing remains about a person's life, which is what they did. And that in itself, in this instance, is already so complicated and already so difficult of making a judgment about. I just as soon leave it the way it is. Yeah.
Jay, if you were going to just make a word profile of Bob Lucy, how would you describe this man?
I would describe him as extremely intelligent, probably, in his earlier years, probably more intelligent than anyone around him, from which came a feeling of cocksureness and arrogance and a feeling that he could control the situations. At the same time, he's very romantic. He's a believer. He believes what people tell him, which is kind of an astonishing character trait to find in a hardened, corrupt cop. I think he's a survivor of the deepest dye, and that is the quality that I admire in him, and it's the quality that I find heroic, because I think he has survived, and survived with some integrity and with a wholeness of spirit, in a way that's totally remarkable for what he went through.
Is he a realist?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's a fantasist of the deepest dye.
You could only be a fantasist and think you could get away with what he thought he could
That's
get away
right.
with.
He's a romantic. He makes up stories for himself, for his life, for his. He's a romancer.
Do you think he's honest? I mean, if he makes up things, can you believe what he says?
You can believe everything he says because it's all part of something that's very deep in him.
Yeah, he's the first. Remember the first time we met him?
Oh boy.
My breath was taken away because I thought, my God, he is so conditioned to confession that you press a button and it all comes. I mean, it was like a tidal wave. He was so eager to have you like him. This, of course, is his greatest vulnerability. He desperately wants to be loved, and boy, that's a fatal flaw in the world in which he attempted to move.
Do you think, Mr. Lumet, part of what he did for ego reasons, and maybe in our business we would say maybe that he had a star complex of some kind?
I wouldn't call it star complex, but ego had ego had an enormous amount to do.
I think he's got a star complex. I disagree. I think so.
Arrogance.
I think he wants the lights. You bet.
You do, Jay, huh?
Oh boy, I'll say. Now, who's to, we live in who do we know in our world who doesn't? I mean, this is not the most pejorative thing you can say about somebody.
Mr. Lumet, when I saw the movie, it was with a regular audience, and at the end, without giving too much away, people clapped for him, for Danny.
This was a total astonishment to us when it first
it
began to
happens
happen.
all the time, and we couldn't believe it. We thought the first time that it happened that, oh, well, we've got some kind of peculiar audience tonight. And then it kept happening. I'm sorry, I interrupted your question.
No, it was just that I wanted to get your reaction, but is that an indication to you that the audience sees something that the two of you didn't see, or they're reading other things?
For me it does. For me it does, because I wanted always to keep a very hard edge and a very ambivalent thing about him. And Sidney was even more so than I.
Yeah, I didn't want any rooting interest in it.
No rooting interest at all.
And so that when it came...
we were stunned.
When it came, and then I thought, and it was very moving, that what they were really applauding was just the humanity, the compassionate humanity of having gone through an experience with him, and and in a peculiar way, the realization that they themselves might not have been able to withstand it in the way that he did.
And that it wasn't over and was never going to be over.
Yeah, a continuing thing.
And does it say to you also, just one last comment, does it say to you also that Treat Williams gives the kind of performance with his own charisma on the screen?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
My word, yes.
I thought they were rooting as much for Treat as they were for...
Of course they were. Of course they were. Absolutely.
Yeah. You are two fascinating people. I could sit here the rest of the day and talk with you.
I wish we could.
Thank you so very, very much.
Ask us again. We'll talk
All right.
again.
Do you want to do a couple of...
Yes, I must do some questions as well. Now, how are we doing here? If I look about here,
Right around by that light stand.
about like so?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do some reactions first and then some questions. If you all want to get out of the lights for a little bit, please feel free. Yeah, because I talk to light posts all the time. Wallpaper, whatever is in my line of vision.
Oh, I'm trapped.
That's a beautiful sweater. Did you make it or someone make it for you? Oh, it's lovely.
I
It's
bought it
lovely.
yesterday to go with that. I
Well,
got
it's
that,
just
I love the
lovely.
color.
They were
Thank
well-
you.
Okay. Reactions. All right, are you cutting me about
I'm
here?
cutting it right up here.
Here?
I don't want to see too much of the background.
Yeah, well, don't get too close. I mean, none of this.
No, no.
None of this. Okay. All right, we can do questions then. There are so many charges against this movie and against you people as the filmmakers that it's a lie and it's this and it's that. It seems to indicate that maybe you didn't do your homework too well. In the movie, you do not try to deal with why Bob Lucy, or in the movie Danny Cielo, why he did what he did. Now that you're getting the question, why didn't you deal with the why, do you wish, let me start again. In the movie, you are not dealing with the why of it, why he did what he did. And now that you're getting flack, as it were, from people who say, well, why didn't you deal with the why? If you were doing it over, would you put that into it?
Next one, just look a little more towards your left.
Oh, all right. Okay, I'm sorry. Should I do that question again then? Okay.
Because that won't be coming in a second. A little more towards your left. That's it, a little more. Okay, good.
When I saw this movie with a regular audience, and without giving too much away, at the end, people actually clapped. Does that surprise you? What does it say to you that some people at the end of the movie actually clap in a sort of heroic fashion? Do you think that it might be Treat Williams' own charisma that they're applauding? If you had to draw a word profile of Bob Lucy, what would you say? Is he a realist? Okay. There was one other question when they disagreed. Oh, I know what it is. I know what, yeah, right, thank you. Do you think that Bob Lucy has a star complex? Okay, that should do it.